And we are back. Always enjoy talking to the coach, Coach Carl Reed, who joins us from time to time, primarily to break down players and games because of his immense knowledge. Coach, great to see you. The last time we saw you, you had just come back from a fishing expedition with Coach Prime, and I want to start there because he has been in the news this week because of his actions about a local columnist. Can you give us some context or insight into what this is all about?
Well, from Coach Prime's perspective, Paul, he feels like he's been covered unfairly by this particular reporter. And I know that there's a lot of opinions about whether he should have done this or not, but we just live in a day and age where people can make a decision, Paul, that they don't want to deal with you. And if they make that decision, you have to live with it. When you make things personal, people can handle it any kind of way that they want to. And that's the way that Coach Prime decided to handle the situation.
And listen, that's his right. But was it necessary to make it public? I mean, he never had to answer this guy's question again. Never had to speak to him. That happens every day in every coaching and professional office in the country.
Paul, when I first started working in the media, I did an incredible interview with Dabo Swinney, the Clemson head coach. Him and I had a great relationship. One of my former players played for him. He gave me a 55-minute interview, and it was really good to jumpstart my career in the media. My player and his family got upset with Dabo, and he left. If Dabo does not want to talk to me anymore because he's upset about how that situation ended, then that's something that I just have to accept. And I also can't pretend like I know why he doesn't talk to me in the same way that he did when he had the player and when he was going through the recruiting process. We all are men here, Paul. This is a man's business. It's a big boy business, and we all understand how our relationships work in this space.
Coach, let's start with some football. Just your reaction to what happened in Dublin. What was wrong with Florida State?
The thing with Florida State is they're not the same team, Paul, that they were a year ago. Nick Saban said this all the time. The game of football is not a continuum from last year. Florida State lost 20 players to the NFL, all their top guys. They are a different kind of team. They don't have the same type of quarterback. They don't have the same guys on defense. And Georgia Tech was a bad matchup for Florida State. They ran gap scheme power O 29 times. That's 29 power runs where you block down and you kick out from the backside. And that was a run that they found the hole in Florida State defense. They exposed it. They played big-time football. It was a bad matchup for Florida State. I do think Mike Norvell will take this ball club and he will figure out a way that they can play based on the guys that are there right now and move forward and still have a successful season.
Let me ask you about some of the most intriguing matchups of this week. And you mentioned Dabo a minute ago, and there's so much conversation and chatter about his program. They take on Kirby Smart. Where do you think the Clemson program is right now heading into that game?
Well, the Clemson program is not the program that they were 5 years ago because of the transfer portal and NIL. They've lost some guys. Now, Dabo has been criticized a lot because people feel like he won't go into the transfer portal. I think that he will get guys out of the transfer portal, but he's not willing to compromise the culture of his locker room and the certain type of guys that he wants in there. He probably needs some general managers, some front office help to get in there. I mean, I know they got some good guys in the front office, but I think that Dabo could be convinced to go to the transfer portal, but it's got to be the right type of guys because people have closed the gap on them tremendously.
But on that subject, Deion has turned over his program with so many players. So have a number of others. Can you survive today by being that concerned about your culture?
I don't think that you can, Paul. I think it's tough. I know Deion was criticized a lot of it. We're talking about Deion. Something I want to say, Paul. I want you to think about this because people have criticized him for the interview with the media and all of that. If we take his playing career off the table, and we don't say, well, Deion Sanders, the Hall of Fame player, and I tell you, you got a guy who was a youth football coach, right? Who then matriculated and started coaching high school, won a couple state titles, and then he went and took over an FCS program and led them to 2 conference championships. Then he took over one of the worst programs in the country and got them to 4 wins. If I told you, hey, this guy's name isn't Deion, his name is Paul Finebaum, everybody would be saying, man, I like Paul. Paul is doing an incredible job. I think that his program is going in the right direction. But because it's who it is, people don't like the way that he's building it.
That's fair. Listen, I've been critical, but I'm also a fan of his, and I respect what he does. But but again, that's what we do, and he's welcome to say anything he wants, as you are, and me, and everyone else.
Well, absolutely, Paula. I mean, you do a great job covering football. Everybody knows you Mr. SEC. When everybody wants to know what's going on in the SEC in the South, Paul Finebaum is where you turn into. But we're talking about Deion Sanders in the University of Colorado in the Big 12 because he is as relevant of a story as there is in college football today.
Coach Reed, a few more before we go here. Notre Dame and Texas A&M. I'm really interested in this game because there's so many different dynamics. But from what you can, and nobody knows, but from what you can guess, and especially what you hear, how does that matchup look to you, especially being in College Station?
Marcus Freeman, one of the great defensive minds the last several years, one of the top upcoming young coaches, has an opportunity to go on the road in the College Station and get a signature win and get Notre Dame started off on the right foot for playoff contention. Mike Elko, after turning Duke around, comes back. Another defensive-minded guy in the SEC, has a great non-conference home game. This is going to be big for both of these teams' goals. But Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, their program with the new quarterback they got, Riley Leonard, they are positioned to be a playoff team. But this is the kind of game that you got to go on the road and win when we start seeding this thing out because Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference. They need this win.